Hey everybody, this is Dan.
And this is Ron.
This is a nominee questionable movies, and today we have a pod guest, fresh from the pod world. Eric, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. Hello, I'm Eric from the Pod World, and mainly I'm a musician. And I know you guys because I teach Ron ukulele and have for somewhere between 2 and 3 years, I guess. That's what we determined, something like that.
It was a little while before the pandemic,
Right.
and it was not too long after I first moved to Cambridge. So at least 3 years. At least three
Okay.
years, maybe more.
Yeah.
I still haven't I'm still not a professional player, but that's not due to your attempts. That's due to my fallibilities.
Well, I mean, you're better and better every, so I don't know. I see you get better all the time, so.
Really?
Yeah, well, of course. I mean, what about the whole you're a lot better at chord identifying and memorizing things and
Oh.
yeah.
So would you say that Ron's ukulele skills and COVID cases, if you put them both on a graph with the same timeline, they'd roughly match up? Like Ron's ukulele peaking right now.
Right. Yes, right.
Wait, does that mean it's downhill after that?
We'll have to see.
Yeah, I guess we don't know yet.
Yeah. I hope I'm still
I mean,
on upward.
You got to keep this guy employed, right?
Yeah.
Can't get too good.
Yeah. Well, I can keep myself employed by giving you just enough to keep you wanting more. It's like the drug dealer's philosophy of ukulele teachers. I always leave you with missing a couple of chords in the song that we're working on. Pull you back in for next week, or convince one of your friends to buy you a huge amount of lessons.
Yeah, wow, that was an amazing gift.
Which is cool. Yeah.
Mm.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lydia, also a student from Ron. Knowing Ron, she sent her my way, and then
Nice.
Thank you for my referral fee.
and that was also actually she started taking lessons with me before the pandemic as well. Yeah, I can't remember exactly how long, and so that was so I guess for you and me, it's got to have been at least 3 years, maybe a little more.
I know the exact. Well, I could figure out the exact date that she met you because it was at my.
Right.
What do you call them? Not rehearsal, not recitation.
Recital.
At the recital. Yeah.
Mm.
And so I think she started not too long after that.
Yeah, no, she started a week or two after that.
Oh wow, that was quick. Okay, I didn't realize it was that fast.
Within a couple weeks or so. But anyway.
So we all watched a movie in the last week.
Yeah, I watched
it.
Sorry, go on.
I watched it 2 a.m. last night, but it's from 1980. It's called Can't Stand the Music, and it's nobody corrected me there. I was like,
yeah, Can't Stop the Music.
Yeah.
That's the actual title.
Right, I think you had referred to it.
Nobody's.
Or is that just how you felt about it, Dan?
Well, I just wanted to see if anybody corrected me, and nobody did. Yeah, Can't Stop the Movie. Anyway, but it's a fictionalized account of the formation and success of the Village People. It has Steve Guttenberg. It has the person formerly known as Bruce Jenner, now Caitlyn Jenner. It has who else is it? A bunch of no names.
Yeah, there's a bunch of. I was reading the Wikipedia article on it yesterday while watching it. So I guess one thing that I'll say, just for a little backstory, is the way that we came upon this movie was because I was visiting a friend of mine in Austin, Texas in 2019, and he took me to one of his favorite places in Austin, a VHS rental store.
Oh, I've been there. Yeah, that place is great.
Yeah, I forget the name of it, but you've been there. I think it's the only.
Yeah. My sister, who's been on the show, Carrie, she lives out there.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Over by like I don't know if you saw there's like an Arby's that hasn't been updated since like 1950 something.
I
He
don't.
lives right near the Arby's.
Okay, I don't remember the Arby's, but that's great. So you've been to the same store.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. But anyways, we were looking for stuff to rent, and we found that, and it was like, hands down, like we're renting this tonight. We're watching it tonight. Of course, we didn't really pay super close attention to it. Every once in a while, we just kind of turn from our conversation and see what was happening on the screen. But anyways, watching it, like sitting down and giving it a proper view was interesting, and I feel like this is the perfect podcast. This is what I kept thinking while I was watching it. I was like, this podcast is for the purpose that you guys and another person maybe watches a movie so other people don't have to. And I thought that is very appropriate for this movie.
Yeah.
You hit it on the nose.
On the one hand, I loved it. On the other hand, I couldn't wait for it to fucking end. Sorry if I'm not supposed
It's so fucking long. Oh my god. I mean, I think the first way you watch it is probably the right way to watch it, the same way that like if somebody's like embarrassing themselves like hugely in public or making a giant scene, you're not supposed to like gawk at them. Right? Like it doesn't demand your full attention to retain whatever scraps of dignity it had. Like the only way I managed to get through this entire movie was I just presumed that it takes place in the same cinematic universe as Police Academy, and that as soon as the village people folded, Steve Guttenberg went off to the Police Academy, and that got me through barely. That was like,
he put down his microphone and he just walked to the precinct and asked for an advocate. He's like, I'm already.
They weren't popular for that long. I was looking them up last night because I never actually like looked them up on allmusic.com, and I realized I've owned every single Village People record and did not realize it. I may still own, I think, most of them because nobody cares about the Village People anymore. Nobody.
That's a hell of a discovery to find out that you have their discography.
Yeah, well, because I bought a bunch of, because like when I buy records, I'm not, I'm buying a lot of records at once, right?
Right.
And there was this guy in Roslindale who I went over to his apartment. He had all these disco records, and he had, I didn't manage to, this is what I should have paid him for. I should have given him like good money for it. He had a bunch of original like DJ mixtapes that were used at underground like gay dance clubs in the late 70s in downtown Boston. But yeah, so I bought this collection of records. I think it had every Village People, every Donna Summer record, and I think one of the Donna Summer records had his chest X-rays in it. And I'm like looking through the records.
The chest X-rays of the man you bought it from?
From the guy that I bought it from, yeah.
Wow.
And I mean, you get weird stuff in like, I'm trying, my friend, I haven't seen the guy in a long time, but I think we're friendly. But the guy who owns Molasses Books out in Brooklyn, somebody was using a Do Not Resuscitate form as a bookmark once. And then sold him the book. Like, you get weird stuff. And I mean, I had a copy of Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. I think that's the name of the book. The one about the confrontation between the FBI and the Native Americans in the 70s. And it had a guy's CIA deployment letter as the bookmark.
Well, that guy was a bad CIA agent.
Well, you wonder if he was using it as like research for counterinsurgency or whatever, right? Because you don't know what people were buying books for necessarily.
Right.
But anyways, so this movie is good Lord. Where do we even begin with what went wrong with this movie?
Well, for one thing, I will say I don't know, guys, if you guys researched it much or anything, but I was just finding it funny that so apparently this movie, Can't Stop the Music, and Xanadu were the inspiration for the Raspberry Awards, which is an award ceremony I always forget about what it's for until I click on it and like, oh, it's specifically for terrible movies.
Yeah, the Razzies.
And yeah, I mean, I guess it sort of was the. Could you say that it was maybe the final nail in the coffin of like the disco era? Maybe like a sort of symbolic, like, okay, we're doing different things now, or something like that.
Disco was already on its way out, but yeah, this.
Yeah.
Again, it sounds like you disagree, but yeah, if
Well,
final nail or one of the last.
like the popularization in the attempt to mainstream disco, I think that's when that died.
Yeah.
In terms of actual like record output, like you have like you ever heard any of those Italo disco records where they're like they can't speak English, but they're just doing like weird shit with synthesizers?
I'm not sure if I have.
Okay, that kind of stuff, that goes for a lot of money now, so it's like you're not going to run into it a whole lot, but it's like the disco equivalent of punk. Almost. It's just like weird janky stuff that people made in their basement, it sounds like.
Yeah.
A lot of the time. And I mean that's like a lot of early like Shame by Shirley and Company that I sent you guys. That's just like a backing tape. That's not like they didn't actually hire a band. If you ever hear the like 45 of that, like they tried to remaster it at one point and the levels were so bad they just gave up on this CD.
Well, because it was just like the backing track that was just kind of put onto the record or something like that.
It's like give or take recorded onto a boombox.
Yeah, right.
It's like that. You know, this was like underground, low budget, lo-fi stuff for a long time.
Right.
And then you have kind of this, it comes into vogue with Saturday Night Fever. They think like, oh, okay, we can sell this as like straight guy dance culture. That doesn't work really. And like, did you ever see Saturday Night Fever?
Actually, I haven't. No.
It's a very good movie. It's just like this incredibly depressing drama about this like dude who has a shitty job and the only good part of his life is going to this disco club and all of his friends are lowlifes. And it's sort of like Rebel Without a Cause, but it doesn't have anything to do with the actual disco culture beyond their like dancing to disco music for parts of the movie, right? Okay. But that kind of brings it into, you know, this, you know, the fashion changes a little bit. I think some of the fashion stayed into the 80s, like the kind of like slightly open shirts and stuff. Well, I guess that was like pretty big in the 70s. Yeah, and this is kind of the tail end of that. And I guess like saying that it signifies the end, I think the thing that most signifies the end of it is that like they're not outright saying these guys are gay in this movie, but they all but say like nobody, there's no romantic subplot for anybody. There's
not for any of the village people,
right?
Yeah, there's a kind of weird romance going on throughout this. It's like, but that's a very weird thing. Everything around his character, Bruce Jenner, Caitlyn Jenner's character. I think one of the sort of implications was when he stormed out during the party, and then the woman was like, I can't remember what she said, but he was like, "Where do you draw the line?" You know, he's like, "I think your friends are just too much for me." Like, and that's actually the other thing that I enjoyed about the movies. Everything is like all the diction and like the voice projecting is very like Broadway theater-esque. This is going to take a lot of scheming and plotting.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's shot very much like there's so many wide shots where I don't understand. Like I get that they want to show off the apartment set, that backyard set, but like why is this in 185:1? Like that's usually like that's extra widescreen. You're using that if you're doing a movie that has like a lot of landscapes and vistas or whatever. In this one, it's just like they don't want to bother editing individual reaction shots in any scene, so they're just like, all right, we're going to put the camera way back, like almost Andy Warhol style. It's like let the camera just sit there.
Yeah,
they've also got to fit 6 people, so you know they need
right without editing. And then this movie is also like incredibly racist at points.
Oh yeah.
Right, like there's the point where there's the guy in the headdress, and we all know the village people have the guy in the headdress, and there's like I think she's coded as Jewish. She's like the woman that's just like she wants to sleep with everybody.
I don't think we need to repeat the racist joke.
Yeah, but it's the most racist thing I've heard in a movie from the '80s. I think period that I can think of.
Yeah.
And I think it underlines this other kind of weird tension in the movie of like kind of appropriating costumes in public as sort of a like reinvention of identity thing, because that's how it's sort of seen within like postmodernism and within like analyses of drag culture. At the same time, you have this like it can very easily veer off into incredibly offensive cultural appropriation in the case of this guy who is walking around dressed like a cigar store figurine for most of the movie.
Although he does, the guy that plays the Indian, these are all the characters in the Village People are the actual Village People. And the guy that plays the Indian says he actually has Indian heritage.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I mean, didn't Sarah Palin say that at one point?
It's a claim that goes around every so often.
My grandmother said that when I was younger, because she bought all these like, I still have here. I'll just show you an example. But she bought all these collectible plates of like the sad Emmett Kelly crying clown painting that's been like copied a million times.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can see that. But so it's the photo of the Trail of Tears, like the guy going off on the Trail of Tears dressed as an Emmett Kelly clown. She had like 15 collectible plates like that in her house when I was growing up.
Wow.
And yeah, she would say like, oh yeah, we're like 1/8 Native American. And then it turned out she just felt like really ashamed of buying those plates off of QVC.
Yeah. Are you saying that maybe that's why he was making that claim? Like, no, it's okay. I'm part Native American. It's all good.
Yeah. It's. I mean, I don't know. You know, I don't actually know the guy, but it seems like I don't know if it would hold up in a court of law. I guess is all I'm saying.
Right. Well, can we get him to send a swab to 23andMe or something? Obviously, back then, not many people were too upset about him jumping around. Like, he was also just kind of a crazy character in the movie. Like, he never really.
Right.
And I don't know what that's supposed to be about or anything. If that's just like a character choice or something. But he like hardly ever sits still, and he's always kind of like jumping around and doing stuff.
Well, I guess like in terms of the symbolism and the iconography of the Village People, they're all supposed to be parodies of like extreme traditional male masculinity, right? So he's supposed to be like the guy on the chewing tobacco pouch or whatever. He's like the super masculine, like whatever.
Although he's not, in sort of traditionally super masculine in the way he jumps around and moves. Oh yeah, well it's parody, right? It's like breaking down gender roles through parody or whatever. Right. But all the characters are sort of these, well, you've got the song Macho Man, but they're all these macho man, the construction worker and the soldier and the cop and the leatherman, and I'm missing someone, the sailor. Sailor, I think.
I love the way that some of the characters or some of the Village People were introduced to the movie. Like having the auditions and the leather guy just shows up and he's like, I was looking to like, what was it? He's had like a parking ticket. And then they're like, what? I thought you were here to do the singing audition or whatever they said. And then he's like, singing? And he's like, you ain't heard nothing yet. And then goes and sings, and then croons Danny Boy of all things. I mean, it was just great. That was one of my favorite scenes, actually.
And there's so little conflict in the movie. Like they find each other, they record a thing, they're successful, the movie ends. But somehow that takes 2 hours.
Yeah, 2 hours. That's the thing. I was like expecting it to end sooner. Then I checked and I was like, wait, I watched an hour and there's an hour left? What?
Yeah.
Who did that?
Yeah, after I watched it and I messaged you guys and said, good luck.
Yeah.
I meant it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say something worse, like if you think you're in for a treat, be prepared.
Yeah.
I guess it was a treat. I mean, it was awful, and it was to some degrees unbearable. And how did you describe it, Eric? You couldn't wait for it to end, but what was
it? In some sense, I loved it just because of all the choice made and whatnot. But at the same time, I was enjoying watching just the, I guess, kind of catastrophe that was happening. but like any catastrophe, I couldn't wait for it to end.
Okay.
Wait for it to be done with. But I also, just another character entrance, when they find the cop, and he has like a little fantasy. I forget, they were like in a store or something. I may have zoned out in the moments leading up to like meeting him, but he I think it was the cop, pretty sure, but he then goes into this whole like fantasy, and it's a whole musical number, right?
And, that's the construction worker.
Was it the construction worker?
The one who thinks who dreams of being famous and the number with all the women?
Yeah,
that's the construction worker.
Okay.
Why do I remember this?
The best part is when he kind of comes out of his reverie, and the woman who's, I forget every character's name. As soon as it was over, I immediately forgot everyone's name. In fact, I don't think I really knew them that well to begin with while I was watching it. But he comes out of his reverie, and then she's just standing there with her Baskin-Robbins ice cream cone, and she's just like, "Hey, did you hear what I said?" And like, just kind of like, it's cheery and unnatural and doesn't sound realistic at all. Then he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, of course. Like, yes, I want to do it." But then I'm like, did she just stand there for 4.5 minutes, like, while he was just like staring into space? And she's maybe every 30 seconds "Hey, did you hear what I said?" Like, I mean, I guess that's like, that sort of sets the tone for the whole movie, or not sets the tone. That sort of describes the tone for the whole movie. It's very unrealistic and just over the top, and just doesn't make sense in a lot of ways. But
and I think like its greatest weakness, having now seen a fair number of the like late 70s, early 80s disco craze movies because of someone here who shall not be named. No, right, it's Ron. It's definitely Ron. It's always Ron. And it's so like this versus the Apple or Xanadu, this never quite goes into complete lunacy like the Apple or Xanadu. It sticks to the storyline pretty straightforward. It doesn't like throw a curveball into the disco proceedings. And I thought that was the greatest weakness of this, in terms of it being like a so bad it's good movie.
Is that it didn't go ridiculous enough, you mean?
It was like missing it. It's so slow. Like when it goes into those crazy, like the dream sequence where it just looks like a disco-fied version of Lenny Riefenstahl's Olympia for like 5 minutes. I think that was the one you were just talking about.
Yeah.
That's insanity. That's what I'm looking at these movies for. Like just a business meeting where everybody gets along. Right. Just like, oh, we were thinking about recording. Well, we're signing you to a label immediately. And it's like, wow, and how are we going to make this movie 2 hours? But somehow they, and I guess that's another Warhol thing, is you're just watching, except in this case, there's staged events. So there's not even like kind of the texture of reality there. It's just this like, it's like the world's largest piece of processed cheese. Right. And it's just, you're staring at it.
Right. It's the Kraft singles of music.
It's the Kraft single that like got fat.
It's not technically a film. It's a movie film product. It has to be, and it needs a full classification.
It's a documentary about bad acting.
Right.
It's a field study, field recording.
So one of the ways they made this be 2 hour long was adding, like, spread throughout a half hour, about a half hour of material about the love story between the woman who's the former model and the Caitlyn Jenner character, and which was totally unnecessary to the movie. I guess it wasn't even I want to say it was the B story. It was the B story or less.
Yeah.
But it took up a lot of time.
It's the smaller piece of Kraft's single that you're topping the giant, like, state fair attention horror piece of Kraft cheese with.
And what this was missing was the cheese whiz. I think let's go all out in this direction. Right. Let's just have a big, like, mountain of cheese whiz.
Right.
You know how in Close Encounters, what's his name? What's the actress? Richard Dreyfuss. He makes the Devil's Tower out of mashed potatoes.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that much cheese whiz.
See, I was imagining, like, the poster for the movie. Like, ever see the Herb Alpert whipped cream and other delights record cover with the model, and she's just wearing a bunch of whipped cream?
Yeah.
And it's like that, but it's the Village People, and all they're wearing is cheese whiz. And it just says can't stop the movie or whatever. I can't. My friend Paul, his dad, always used to think that the theme song for the Jerry Lewis telethon was called "You'll Never Walk Again," and he was like an alcoholic. And we probably had this conversation, like, or Paul would have it and then he'd report back, and he probably had the conversation like 2-3 times, and every time he would just remember that it was right, because the actual name of it is "You'll Never Walk Alone."
Mm-hmm.
He's like, yeah, it's Jerry Lewis on the televisions. They'll never walk again. Such a sad song. Gets me every time.
Actually, speaking of songs, I actually think so. You do have a good point that they made a huge mistake by not just going, like, further with their bold choices. But I was actually thinking that the biggest mistake, in my opinion, was that they left out, like, 2 of their biggest songs.
Well, they probably couldn't license them, right? Because you notice later on in the movie, there's a point where they say they're signed to Marrakesh Records.
Right, yeah.
Marrakesh Records is not a real record label.
Right.
No.
All the disco stuff I know from the Chest X-Ray guy was, if it's a disco record from that period that you ever heard of, 95% chance it was released on Casablanca Records.
Uh-huh.
Now, somehow they could license the Village People, but they could not get Casablanca Records to put their name anywhere near this movie.
Well, I believe that makes perfect sense. I didn't read anything that they weren't allowed to put the songs in there. I just literally skimmed the Wikipedia. But it just commented on one of its major flaws on having Macho Man or In the Navy. And that's
or YMCA. YMCA never showed up.
What?
Isn't YMCA at the end?
Oh, does YMCA show up?
No, YMCA is in the middle. There's a whole scene. We see all these naked guys.
Dan, did you completely black out the naked dudes in the shower?
I think I did. I was paying attention to it, but there was only my mind was like a boat trying to dock on a completely smooth rock formation.
Dan, that was the high point of the movie.
I'm pretty sure it's where they're in the locker room, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Okay, so I was having a hard time. Ron and I watched Police Academy like a year ago, I think, right? It was about a year ago now.
Mm-hmm.
And my mind, I could not follow it. Like, I could not, and I knew that it wasn't telling some kind of hugely complicated narrative. It's just my brain could not deal with it for whatever reason. And I think this is like that. Maybe it's something about Steve Guttenberg just like turns my brain to mush.
No, I mean, I'm kind of with you with that, though, is that I kept sort of forgetting what was happening. And I think that owes a lot in part to the fact that there really wasn't much conflict happening. It was kind of just like we have an idea, and then they kind of pursue the idea, and then it it pretty much just works out.
It's like somebody's speech at a retirement party, right? It's just like everything nice that happened to me in 5 minutes, now it's 2 hours. And
yes, that's exactly what it was like. Yeah, I definitely did like. I was watching it, but still zoning out. It was weird. It was like I was concentrated, and yet there was nothing to actually grab onto.
Yeah. There's like it's almost like a hypnotic. Like if a film is bad enough but not engaging or offensive in any way, my brain gets to that point where, like, when you've been driving for a really long time and you forget that you were driving to the place, but somebody like, oh, I remember I went into my car. I remember I went to Stewart's. I don't remember driving to Stewart's. Right.
Is that a Stewart's milk reference?
Stewart's is like they're everywhere around here. It's like the big convenience store chain.
No, I know, because me and my friends got obsessed with Stewart's milk.
Yeah, they got the milk club. I always have Stewart's milk in my coffee right now.
They always have signs that says like voted best milk in New York and stuff like that.
It is. That was with my ex. We would argue a lot because she said the best ice cream in the U.S. was all in Maine.
Okay.
And I said no. Stewart's has better ice cream.
They do.
They do.
Actually, yeah. I don't remember their ice cream specifically, but their milk.
Their vanilla won like international competitions.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. It's like verified by people that know more about this shit than I do. But I also eat horribly, so I feel like that should qualify me for some kind of distinction in judging the ice cream. But
accolade.
You're what do you call a wine connoisseur? A sommelier, right?
Sommelier, yeah. I'm like
the ice cream
sommelier.
Actually, that's an interesting tie back to milk, because milk is right when she decides she's going to take the modeling job.
Right.
For milk.
Wait,
oh, right, it's a milk can.
How much of this movie did I actually absorb? I don't remember anything about a modeling job.
And all the kids are dressed like the village people, and she's like, if you guys want to grow up to be big and strong and sing and dance, you got to drink your milk.
Dan, do you remember that the character, the female lead was a former model?
Yes, I remember.
Okay, all right.
Wow, this is like watching this movie was like blackout drinking.
She didn't want to go back. She retired from modeling at like 30 or something like that, and she had her former agent or manager or whatever really wanted her to come back, and she finally did it in order to get the money to support Steve Gutenberg's dream of music.
Right.
Oh, right, and that's where they get the money to
record. And
I thought it was interesting in a disco movie that the only drug that we see is marijuana.
Yeah, that wasn't.
I don't think anybody's smoking marijuana and going out to a dance club.
I can tell you that's a bad idea.
I don't believe that was the drug of choice in the disco scene.
Right.
Drugs plural.
Right, correct.
Right, because there were a lot of like you could get weird drugs back then. Like I was listening through a bunch of Velvet Underground bootlegs, and there's that one where you can hear Jim Carroll like buying Tuinals from a guy.
Oh, right, yeah.
Right, and it's because the tape recorder's right next to his face, right? So like you can barely hear Lou Reed. It's like, I want some Tuinals. And what the fuck is a Tuinal? I never heard of a Tuinal.
Yeah, I think it's one of those drugs from the 70s that basically went the way of the Quaalude.
Yeah, and like Quaaludes, they had like that comeback as the Wolf of Wall Street, but Tuinal, that's like disco, it's not coming back, I don't think.
No.
Or Jim Carroll.
Probably not. That's true.
All right, I'm looking up Tuinal. It's the brand name of a discontinued combination drug composed of 2 barbiturate salts, secobarbital sodium and amobarbital sodium in equal proportion. It was introduced as a sedative/hypnotic sleeping pill in the 40s.
I was gonna say, it sounds like the kind of drug that probably ruined Judy Garland's life.
Yeah. Here we go. They were known as Tuies, Double Trouble, Blue Tips, F66. and promotes the physical and psychological dependence. Oh wait, no, come on, this isn't telling us what it was, how it felt. Yeah, this is from the Wikipedia article. I guess Wikipedia isn't the best place to find out how great
obscure, outdated, illicit drugs.
Yeah.
Actually, does it count as illicit? Because it would probably have been prescribed initially, right?
It was prescribed. It was prescription medication.
Right.
Just that it was abused.
Does that count as illicit? Not if you're not abusing it, I guess. I don't know.
No, not if you're not abusing it. If you have a prescription for it.
Right.
I forget what schedule it said it is.
Right.
Because it wasn't an illegal drug.
Yeah. Right.
In fact, if it's a legal drug, if you abuse it, if you're getting like really high prescriptions, like more than you really need, that's still legal, right?
If you're getting more than you need?
It's more than you need, but it's what the doctor prescribes.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be illegal for you, I guess.
Yeah.
If you can show your subscription.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess it's just one of those things that makes they would have had to just rethink the drug altogether.
Right.
Probably not. I don't know. That's an interesting question.
When I was on for my back, I can never remember the name. It starts with a P, and it's Percocet. Thank you. I always go Paxil, well, whatever. I go through like 5 different things.
Right.
Percocet. I actually had to sign something that said that I will not get any other prescriptions for it. Yeah. That it will, if I lose it, it's not going to get replaced. And I had to get a new refills. I had to get a new prescription every time, even though I needed it for several months.
Yeah.
Why? Oh my God, best sensation ever. I met up with a friend of mine once. We were walking down the street, and she just said to me, "Ron, you are so high." I totally understand why people get hooked on this stuff. As soon as I didn't need it, I threw it away because I was like, I don't want to get hooked on this stuff.
Right, because what'll happen is one day you'll have like a migraine or something like that, and then you'll remember, oh wait, I still have those Percocets, and then you just lowered the bar for taking Percocets.
Right.
Yeah.
I actually had Percocet once before. When I was in, I had surgery like about a little over 10 years ago, and afterwards they gave me, I was prescribed this giant bottle.
Oh wow!
Liquid Percocet, and I was barely taking it. I was like, no, I want to limit it only when it's real pain. I'll take Tylenol. And it's like, and I didn't realize how much pain I was actually in.
Yeah.
Because it was major surgery inside and an organ.
Right.
So, but apparently the street value, I didn't learn till later, of that giant bottle of liquid Percocet, I could have made a ton of money. But no, I ended up pouring it. I don't know if this was appropriate to pour it down the drain, but when
I would have done. That's what I would have done.
Oh, there was a kid at my high school that got hooked on, what was that thing that Dr. House was always taking? It's like an opiate, and it kind of like you just kind of feel very confident and relaxed.
It's not OxyContin, is it?
Oh wait, yeah, no, it was OxyContin.
Okay,
maybe it wasn't.
Well, I
think it was OxyContin. It was either OxyContin, it was something like OxyContin, and he got really into it, and he started like trying to he tried to set up a meeting called the Wisdom Tooth Removal Survivors Support Group to try to get pills from people. And I don't know why. I think he was working at a Wegmans last I knew.
On House?
No. This is like a kid I went to school with.
Oh my God!
And he did like better. He did better on all those like aptitude tests when we were younger. I think he was the only kid in the whole school that got like a 90 in the 99th percentile.
I think Eric and I both thought that you'd still been talking about House.
No. I was just trying to remember which, because it's the same thing Dr. House was addicted to on House.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
But
that's funny. Well, no.
Yeah.
Not funny. Funny that we. I mean, it's funny that we thought you were still talking about House, not really.
Yeah.
House started a Wisdom Teeth support group. Wow, that's.
Yeah, but now I know that that's a real thing that someone tried to do, so that's kind of funny. But,
Yeah.
Anyways, well, it doesn't matter. We don't need.
Well, the thing I was thinking while I was watching this movie was so a movie we covered a few weeks ago, Wild Style. You have this like it's a music movie. It's about hip hop culture, and you have this like really just very, I don't know if accurate's the word. It sells the culture really well. It sells like, why is this exciting? What's going on here? And I don't feel like disco ever got its equivalent of that movie. Like, I feel like all the representative, quote unquote, like classic disco movies by and large are pretty terrible or just completely non-representative, like what we were saying with Saturday Night Fever.
Right.
And I'm sorry, I mean, there's reasons you could speculate on why that was, right? Because it's probably easier to just film whatever was going on in the Bronx versus like underground gay clubs. But it's just sort of disappointing because I feel like there's not a good document of it that I've encountered, at least.
Right. I suppose well, it's too late and not for the same like scene at all, but Party Monster would have been like a kind of equivalent to something that's like more representative of the culture that it's about.
Yeah, I'll have to watch that at some point.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
I never saw that one.
Yeah, I could see that. I've seen that. I think I've seen it twice.
I've seen it twice too.
Yeah. Okay, I could see that as being part of it being representative.
That was sort of like the generation after the like disco died and went, the wave. And then, but drugs are always popular, so they just somewhat different music. It wasn't even really all that different. It was still the same idea, really, right? It's just something you can dance to all night.
Yeah, there's a cross section. There's like an intersection, I guess, between like trance and electronic and stuff in disco.
Right.
Although trance has a much more confusing origin, I think, than disco does, because it's like, right, because the first trance record is just that what is it, E2 E4 by the guy from Ashra Temple, Manuel Gottsching. It's basically just like super experimental German prog rock done with synthesizers, but it's very obviously the first trance record. And yeah, so it's not like coming out of like a pre-existing club culture. There's like a record before the culture develops, which is sort of interesting.
Right.
In terms of the disco version of Wild Style, it's not only that you have to go into the clubs, it's the music itself. It's not in Wild Style they're rapping.
Right.
Whereas disco, you need to have the instruments. You don't just sing disco.
No, I mean, like the Shirley and Company, they're just singing along with a tape.
But you need the tape.
Right.
But it's still true, though. I will say that disco musicians are like some of the best musicians, like non-jazz, non-classical musicians out there.
In what way?
In what way?
Yeah.
Their tightness, their precision. It's a very I guess it depends on what artist or whatever, but like a lot of disco is very precise, and that's kind of actually what you need. I suppose the drums for disco probably aren't that crazy because it's mostly just like boom cat boom cat.
Well, I think disco was like the first genre that was really heavily using drum machines and sequencers.
Yeah.
And that kind of got around. And yeah, like a lot of these guys are studio musicians. A lot of them are like jazz or classical trained, or like Hal Blaine, right? Like probably every hit record you ever heard from the 1960s that was recorded in a studio, Hal Blaine's playing the drums. And he was totally like trained as a like jazz bop musician. But that meant that when they brought in these pop acts, you're like using a tag to go to the grocery store. Like he could play this stuff literally in his sleep, and he probably is on most of this stuff.
Yeah. And
like I feel like I don't know a ton about disco backing bands, but it's probably the same kind of thing where they just assemble a wrecking crew, bring them in, and boom, 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 factory style.
Well, I think I think it is like largely session musicians and stuff like that, which is like a high demanding job. You have to nail a take in like as few takes as possible. So theoretically, one take would be perfect. So I think, I mean, I don't actually know this, but I'm just kind of imagining that they probably studios would get a singer they like, and they like, this guy is good looking, this woman's pretty, we can put them out there, and they have a good voice and good stage presence. Let's put a band to them. That's But anyways, yeah, I don't listen to a ton of disco, but like there's so much good. I mean, it's just they're so tight, so tight. And like the bass and drums are always like what to listen for in a rhythm section for like to kind of determine how good the band is. But yeah, the bass. I mean, disco bass is like I could play that all day. I watch videos of people playing like the bass line to dancing, just because it's like fun to watch them play it and stuff. But anyways, that's
yeah. And I think with disco too, it's hard to dig into it the same way that you dig into some other things, just because it's like it's very intensely a single genre. There's not a lot of like great front to back.
True.
Right. It's sort of like listening to old soul records. Like there's going to be a decent amount of filler because they're just releasing it on like an assembly line. A lot of the stuff's like cheap kind of cash in stuff. Like the first Village People record is literally 21 minutes long and there's only 4 songs on it.
Oh wow.
Like they're trying to cash in on this shit like big time.
Yeah.
And the good, interesting stuff is usually because of the fact that like so much of it is fly by night stuff on these singles only labels. Very expensive if you're looking for physical copies, and you're not likely to just like a lot of how I discover stuff is I'll just encounter copies in the wild. It's not likely you're going to encounter Italo disco singles, like even if you're in Italy. And so it's I mean, so some of the stuff that's like easy, like a lot of the early Giorgio Moroder stuff's pretty easy to find, and that stuff's all really fun, like Munich Machine or the first few Donna Summer records. But yeah, there's just so much of it. I am by no means an expert on disco records. I mean, you could devote, you could run an online store that was nothing but just like specializing. I mean, he's a guy who runs a shop that's literally just Beatles records. So I mean, you can specialize, but it's a big enough category, I guess, where you can specialize. What I'm saying.
Sure. Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I guess it is like pretty much single driven by like pop singles, basically. But
and the singles, a lot of times you're gonna get a better. Honestly, if you're just going to put something on the turntable and listen to it, a lot of times the singles are better because you'll have like the remix of the one good song on the album is going to be better than the 3 bad songs on the rest of the album, right? And it has that modular, not quite to the same extent as hip hop, but that's like the first place where you start seeing the single being regarded as like a use object beyond a listening thing. Right, because you have basically a modular release of the song. You have the vocals, you have the instrumental, and so if you wanted to like remix it or whatever, it's a little kit basically instead of just like here's 2 songs on either side of a record.
Yeah, I see.
So I was just looking up. I just remembered another disco movie. It's Thank God It's Friday, which features Donna Summer singing "Last Dance." Which won the Academy Award. I didn't realize that.
It didn't win a Razzie?
It did not win a Razzie. At least the song. Well, I don't know, actually. Wikipedia doesn't mention if the Razzie, at least not not at the top. Whereas this one, I think Wikipedia mentions the Razzie like front and center.
Yes.
So I imagine that it didn't. Hey, this is at least the second movie that we've seen that won the Razzie Award. I think it won it for worst film, right?
Yep. It beat Xanadu, I believe.
I want to say it got worst film and worst screenplay.
Yep,
that sounds right. Yeah,
according to the Wikipedia. Yeah,
brought home 2 trophies. That's
and All About Steve. That was in the Razzies. We did Xanadu.
But All About Steve also won worst movie.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we've seen 2 winners.
Yeah. Now, All About Steve was a great movie. So
All About Steve was amazing. All About Steve. Sandra Bullock, if you want to come on and just like feel vindicated about All About Steve, we might be the only 2 people on the internet that can provide you that service. Call me.
I was just reading that she accepted the. Well, I don't know if it's that. I'm not familiar with that movie.
Yeah. She's one of the only 2 people to ever show up to accept her award were her for All About Steve and Bill Cosby for Leonard Part 6.
Oh, no kidding. I thought Halle Berry went there.
For Monsters Ball?
No.
For Catwoman.
For Catwoman. Maybe? I may have misread it. I want to go check.
Maybe, yeah.
But, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but what is cool about the Sandra Bullock one is that she showed up and accepted her Razzie for whatever, worst actress, I think it was. But then the next day, she like won an Academy Award for Best Actress.
Yeah.
So
for a different movie.
That's like that's an interesting week to have, you know.
Yeah. She not only showed up to the Razzies, you can actually see her accepting the award. It's only on stage for like 3-4 minutes, and you can find it on YouTube. She gave a copy to everyone in the audience of the movie.
And you get a car. You get a car.
Yeah. You get a DVD and you get a DVD. She said she wants them because she knew that not everybody had watched the movie. So she said, you watch the movie and then I'll come back next year when you admit that it's not the worst movie there, and I'll give you back the award.
Oh, wow.
Something like that. Yeah.
And I think I watched at least like 8 or 9 movies that were all worse than All About Steve this week.
Yeah.
And can't stand the music or can't stop the movie or whatever it is. That was one of them.
Yeah, Eric, there might be only 3 people in the world that like All About Steve, and that's
there's us, there's Becky. Sister. Pete thought it was okay.
Dan and Dan's sister. What was that?
Pete thought it was okay.
Yeah, that's not good enough.
He's not evangelizing. It's really the cult of All About Steve is like us 3, maybe Sandra Bullock, but she has not contacted the main hive in quite some time.
Well, we haven't asked her. Hey, we watched at least 2 Sandra Bullock movies, 3.
Well, we watched The Net. We watched. We still haven't watched that one with Sylvester Stallone. You wanted to watch the sci-fi one?
Oh, not Marathon Man. Demolition Man.
Yeah.
I ended up watching it. I found it. It was available on Netflix or something. Eric, have you ever seen that?
No, I haven't. What is this?
Oh, it's great. I mean, it's not a very good movie, but it's great. It's Sandra Bullock plays an early role. It's for one reason or another, Sylvester Stallone is a cop and he's frozen. He a cryogenic freeze, and he ends up being defrosted about 7 years into the future, which is all this very pristine, high tech. You get fined if you swear, kind of thing. Taco Bell won the restaurant wars, and it's a big deal to be invited.
Oh, wow.
Invited to be to a meal at Taco Bell, which was a really big deal. Sex is done through some it's like some pills or machine. It's sort of like the sex in Barbara.
Like the orgasmatron.
Or like the orgasmatron.
Is that
Sleeper as well?
Is that from Orgasmo?
No, that's from Sleeper.
Oh, okay.
It's just this giant metal ball, and like Diane Keaton touches it, and her hair looks all frazzled. Like, I want to do it again, or whatever. Or no, it's the ball that dry. Or no, the orgasmatron is like a little booth you walk into, and then their version of drugs is just this giant ball bearing on the floor that they touch briefly.
I'd recommend watching it, except that it's Woody Allen, so that becomes problematic. Yeah. Everyone in the audience, what you just missed was Eric gritting his teeth in sort of this pained grin.
In an ear.
He's got a really good dig at Henry Kissinger.
Oh, really? That's
yeah.
Actually, that's something I wanted to bring up about the movie. The constant complaints about taxes and the IRS. That was hilarious. I was like, what is this movie?
Well, that's probably why they made the movie, right? Because I was looking it up the Can't Stop the Music soundtrack. That might have been why they didn't use a ton of original or a ton of older music in it, is so they could sell the soundtrack potentially.
No, that's true.
I mean, the other thing that's really weird about this movie is the Village People were only around for maybe 3 or 4 years at this point.
Uh-huh.
So this is like half the time between like the Slim Shady LP and 8 Mile. I think less than half the time. And so it's like, what the hell did these guys go through to warrant a movie at that point? You know, it's like writing your biography when you're 13 or whatever, right? Like,
well, to be fair, as the movie demonstrates, they've experienced virtually no conflicts. So, so I guess that's your answer. They started a band, and 3 or 4 years later, they got a movie. Right. Actually, it sounds about right.
That seems to be, and I mean, their career was pretty close to over when this came out. I think there's maybe like 2 more years worth of decent sales for the Village People for anything. Yeah. And so that's probably, they probably didn't pay their taxes up till then. So these guys are probably all broke right now.
Well, one of the best lines was like right at the beginning, and it was just funny. Well, for one thing, it's funny after watching the whole movie because you realize that's just the first of many digs at the IRS. When the female lead, whose name I forget, the former model, she said something to the effect of, "I'm so mad at the IRS, I'm going to file late next year." And it's like, I don't think that's going to show them.
Right.
That's one of the few lines that made me literally laugh out loud. Like, reflect, like, as a reflex.
Well, and it almost makes you wonder if the movie, because it's not unheard of for a movie to basically be greenlit as a loss leader, like an actual version of the producers where it's like, we're a movie studio, we made too much money, we need something to lose money or else we're going to have to pay a bunch of taxes.
Right.
Maybe that's how this got made?
Maybe. No. Well, I know at least the director thought this was going to be a new kind of movie. This was going to take the world by storm.
That's true.
And the director, it was weird. I was looking her up. She was like a regular on Rhoda.
Yes, Nancy Walker.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, she played Rhoda's mom. She was a comic actress for forever. This is her only movie.
Yeah.
She directed some TV episodes, but that's a very different experience. This was the only movie she directed.
Well, that's what it kind of seemed to me, is that it seemed like she mainly had a TV career, and then she was like, now I'm going to direct a feature-length film. That's like, when I read that, I was like, okay, I can sort of see how you could go wrong. Like, it's not the same thing, whatever,
Yeah.
It's like,
and I think one of many big issues with the movie is that visually it is, except for the few like kind of and as a first-time director, it makes sense that there's these sequences where just her playing around with the editing rig. It seems like she has no idea how to frame anything.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably part of what made the movie so confusing, is that we're not getting the usual visual language. We're just getting this kind of like lazy camera work.
Right.
She must have paid a lot for those sets, because it seems like she's doing like a reverse Carl Dreyer, right? Like Carl Dreyer, before he made Passion of Joan of Arc, he had everybody build an actual arc, and then he never uses it. It took him like 5 months to build this thing. Never shows up in a single shot in the movie. Purely was just like a team building exercise or whatever. This thing, they decorate an apartment, and it's like, we got to squeeze every last fucking penny out of this thing because we couldn't afford real actors, so we brought in the Village People, right?
Yeah.
Like,
there was one scene that I think was well framed, it was well edited. You got the shots from different angles. Danny Boy, when he performed Danny Boy, I think that was well done, and that might be part of why it was the best part. I think, well, except for the YMCA sequence. Oh, actually, that was well done too. Actually, so I saw this movie years ago. Like I was probably a tween, and it was just sort of playing. I started it like I turned on the TV. That's what was playing. I missed the first hour. The one thing I remember from the whole thing is Danny Boy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, that's the only thing that stuck with me. I didn't realize at the time that the Village People were a real group. I had no idea who they were. I thought this was this made up thing. I actually thought it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
But maybe because I didn't have to suffer through the first hour.
Well, I think the best review when this came out was because I was reading a few reviews. It was written by Friedrich Nietzsche, and it just read, "Blessed are the forgetful, for they get the best even of their errors." And if there's a guide to watching this movie, that's
great advice to go into this movie.
It makes you value the real estate in your head. You know, it's.
Oh, so sorry. Side note. I'm just going back to something. I misspoke. Right, Nancy Walker was the director, was the producer that said this was going to be an amazing thing, any kind of movie and all that. He also said that Caitlyn Jenner, he said Bruce Jenner, obviously, was going to be the new Robert Redford.
That's right. The producer did say that, and that turned out not to be the case.
No. Yeah.
Actually, what I will comment on that, not the producer, but so Caitlyn Jenner didn't appear in another movie until 2011, and it was an Adam Sandler movie I forget the name of, which also won a Razzie.
Oh, no kidding!
So Caitlyn Jenner takes like a 40-ish year break or so, or what is that, 30-year break?
30-year, yeah.
Takes a 30-year break from film and just to land another role in another horrible movie. I haven't seen the Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah, because they're not a good actor.
Yeah.
They're terrible in this movie, and
she's now politically a horrible person. So she deserves a political Razzie.
I mean, you might, like it. Oh my God, the acting in this movie is some of the worst acting. Like we were talking about this the other day with that Ron Livingston movie we watched, Relative Strangers, where it's like sometimes there can be like good bad acting or like bad acting that contributes to everyone else's good acting.
Yeah.
In this weird way, and this is just there's no ringer. Like it looks higher budget than it's just like a bunch of friends got a video camera.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think everyone is too earnest. Like all the characters and the way they're played, they're too earnest. Steve Guttenberg especially.
Oh
yeah, Steve Guttenberg's a terrible actor.
Yeah, he mastered the biting your lower lip and looking like gleefully at the other person. That was like, really mean it? And then like, I'm biting my lip for people at home.
Right, you just get the sense of all these people that they're vapid climbers, right? Like, well, like they're vapid climbers that are like portrayed through their own self-view, right? Because there's no sense that they think there's anything important about this music or whatever. It's like, we want to get rich, we want to get famous, and then they get rich and they get famous and everybody gets along. It's like if you ask the person with narcissistic personality disorder how their last 5 years went, and you're just getting like their version of it. Like, everybody loves me, I got along with everybody, and then I got really successful.
Yeah. yeah, that's pretty much how the movie goes. I think my actual favorite thing that happened in the movie, I had to write it down because it was so good, and it kind of takes a little stretch of time for it to like fully resolve.
And that says something about the movie, that the best part of the movie you still had to write down, or else you were going to forget it. Like within less than 24 hours, right?
And I did forget it until I looked at my notebook. I was like, good thing I took notes. But it's when the model agent, whatever she is, that's the older woman trying to convince the blonde woman to go back into modeling. She goes into a phone booth to make a phone call, and then she dials a couple of numbers, right? And obviously this is a rotary, right?
Yeah.
Dials a couple of numbers, and then her finger gets stuck in the dial,
right?
and then she can't get it out, and then Well, the call that she's trying to make gets dropped or something. I forget what, and then she starts banging on the booth. She can't open the booth either.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, and that's just kind of where that. And then they move on to the next scene. Right now, that takes place in the daytime. Fast forward, it cuts back to her later. It's nighttime. We have no idea. We have no idea what time of night it is at this point. But there's no one on the. It was a crowded street before. Now there's no one on the street, and she's still got her fingers stuck in the dial.
Well, you just don't realize how good you got it with cell phones, kid.
Yeah. But then finally, what happens is she sort of. It's also the dumbest thing. She sort of accidentally smacks her hand and it comes out of the dial, and then she like gets the attention of a man who's like, I guess, a homeless guy and very drunk, and he's like, "What's the matter, lady?" And then like very casually lets her out of the booth, and then that's when she scales the wall to the party.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I totally forgot about that. So I'm glad you wrote it down.
Yeah.
I forgot about that part of the movie.
Well, it needed to be written down, as Dan pointed out.
Yeah.
Well, I think that might be this movie's greatest strength, is that it is
forgettable,
so incredibly forgettable, because it's not like the OBGYN scene in the Alf holiday special.
Oh God,
that'll forever be burned in my memory. If you want to check out that episode, there'll be a card at the top of this one. I'll talk about that. But,
wow,
but it's been getting a lot of traffic the last few weeks. But I don't know if it's just like people thinking that we uploaded a pirated copy of the. We don't know how much of our traffic is people on YouTube thinking that we uploaded pirated copies of things and not realizing it's a podcast.
Right.
It's Christmas, so people are looking for the Elf Christmas special, so they find us.
Yeah, and Shop Around the Corner. The Shop Around the Corner episodes will get like a bunch of spikes.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Another Christmas.
And this is our Christmas episode, basically, because this is December 24th. It's Christmas Eve. We're spending Christmas Eve with you guys talking about Can't Stop the Music. That's the kind of year 2021 has been.
That's exactly the kind of year 2021 has been.
Yeah, Eric, did you imagine that you'd be spending Christmas Eve of 2021 doing a podcast about a Village People movie?
No, and also when I was watching it / mostly not watching it with my friends like a couple of years ago, I was not expecting that I would ever willingly put that movie on again. But you know, life is full of unexpected things. I mean,
yeah. How did you guys come up with it? I think it was when you met at my birthday party, right?
Well, what happened?
Well, you mentioned there was a Village People movie, and I was like, I'd never heard of it.
Well, what happened was it was just like that perfect like synthesis of things happening where it was your birthday party, Ron, and the Village People came on, and then it was sort of like when Isaac Newton was like looking at the moon, but like the apple fell, and then he kind of like put it together and realized what the mechanics of gravity are. It was kind of like that, where the song came on, which I'm pretty sure was YMCA, and then I looked at you, who have been trying to get me. We've been trying to figure out a movie where I could be a guest on this podcast. I was like, and we were hoping to try to find like a music related thing as well.
Yeah, we went through a few beforehand. I think we were talking about doing American Pop at one point.
Maybe
maybe Ron and I were talking about that, and that never made it over to you. But
one of the movies we talked about sounded so bad that we didn't even want to review it as a bad movie.
Oh, which one?
I don't remember the name of it, but you and I, Ron, you and I one day were just reading the synopsis, and we were like, you know what? We're not touching this.
Yeah, it sounded so like done.
The really awful one I want to see was the one 50 Cent directed and wrote before I self-destruct, and it was just like it was a bonus with his CD. That was the only release it got.
Are you not talking about the
I'm not talking about before I I'm talking about before I self-destruct. The one that got commercially released, which he did not direct, was called Get Rich or Die Trying after the first album.
Right.
But this one, he's playing like he has a younger brother. He lives at his mother's, but it's obvious the actor they got to play the younger brother is like 25 years younger than 50 Cent. And then the younger brother gets involved in like gang violence or something. And I saw the trailer once. I was like, this looks wonderfully awful. Mm-hmm. There's also the Insane Clown Posse. They made a Western called Big Money Rustlers.
Oh my God.
Which was a sequel to their non-Western ICP movie, Big Money Hustlers. That was what I wanted to see. I mean, the last good music movie. So I got my booster shot on Sunday. So I watched like 9 or 10 movies this week because I was just like, eh. Mm-hmm. And this was by far the worst movie I watched this week. And I watched some pretty bad ones.
Wow.
But this was worse than all the YouTube recommendations that Dan got.
This was worse than all the... I watched right after this to cleanse the palate. I watched this TV movie with Leonard Nimoy as a race car driver who has ESP. That was like slowly crawling my way back to
health.
To health, I guess. Yeah, I mean, it was some pretty awful movies. I watched Slap Her, She's French, that was actually pretty entertaining. You know, I can't say it was good, but it was like it was kind of like cozy in how it was misanthropic. Mm-hmm. I guess. But yeah, did you see that new Velvet Underground documentary that just came out like a few months ago?
I haven't.
That was good. That was legit good. I watched that I've watched that 2 times now. But that's because I'm also like I got a bunch of bootlegs and I was going through. I was listening to everything in chronological order, which was kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is.
But yeah, I can recommend that. That's well edited. They got all the right people. Mm-hmm. You get to see Lamont Young in person, which I've never seen video of Lamont Young talking.
Yeah.
So that's kind of neat.
Yeah, that's pretty neat.
So that's like, if you want like an actual movie recommendation, don't watch Can't Stop the Music if you don't have to.
That is what this whole podcast is for, right? Like
sometimes we get on like, what was it when the Perfect Lives thing came out? We got mentioned on the New Yorker events guy's blog. He was just like, I don't know what the hell this is. They're going from John Cassavetes to the 66 Batman movie, but my friends are on the show this week or whatever was the promo that he did.
Yeah.
And we kind of cover, because the last 2 episodes we talked to, according to the BFI, the director of the 26th best American movie ever made. And then according to, and then we watched The Holy Man. Now we're watching The Village People.
Yeah. So, speaking of Can't Stop the Music, any more thoughts?
I feel like I'm going to always have a thought pop into my head about this for my whole life. I feel like I'm just going to be minding my own business, driving somewhere or something, and then I'm just going to remember, like, the locker room scene. Actually, one thing I thought was funny about the locker room scene is that it comes back real quick in the end credits, which I don't know if you guys watched.
Yeah, I didn't make it that far.
Like, well, for one thing, there's totally dicks in that scene. Very briefly, but it's full frontal, technically.
Huh.
And then, that happens or whatever. And then the end credits, it's like a montage of past scenes. And they slip that in real quick, like, remember this?
Yeah.
And I really appreciated that. Actually, there were some callbacks which were just kind of interesting. That's like the one thing that they kind of maybe had a grasp of, is that they did have, like, callbacks. They were weird callbacks nonetheless, but like the contact lens in the lasagna. And there kept being like stuff happening around the lasagna. Like first she drops her thing in and then she says like, oh, it'll just be crunchy. And then later her boss or former boss is eating it and she's like, very crunchy. And then Caitlyn Jenner's character later is heating it up and in the oven, takes it out of the oven and spills it on like his lap, and the 2 main characters are like removing his pants while talking about. That's really like the conflict that happens. Like,
the one guy like burns himself horribly, and it's like supposed to be funny.
Yeah.
The most offensive part of the entire movie, and the fact that it took me this long, you kind of inspire. Like if I had to sum this movie up in one sentence, it's a movie that I have more thoughts about than memories of. And so there's a scene where they're all in the rare book room. It looks like it's got to be in like a library, museum, or something. And the sprinklers go off, and they're all dancing, and they're cheerful. And I don't know if you ever had to deal with like extremely rare water damaged books before, but that is a fucking nightmare. And they probably destroyed about a few $1 million worth of rare books. I really, really hope that was a set.
Yeah.
Because like if that's the price of the Village People, that is not a price I want to pay.
They like destroyed law books and stuff like
that. They destroyed the only existing copy of the Magna Carta, the Baysom book, and all we got was Macho Man.
Yep.
No, we didn't even get that.
No, we got a quick and sort of not vague reference in the locker room scene during the YMCA bit. She's got a shirt that says "Macho Woman."
Oh, right.
But yeah, that's the closest that we get to Macho.
Let's see, we got YMCA. What else did we get that was
I think that was the only record. I mean, there's like the title song, which must have been released as a single because they came out with an album around the movie called "Can't Stop the Music."
Well, yeah, it was, but it was written for the movie. And there were like the milkshake song was written for the movie, and I think the fantasy sequence was written for the movie.
Yeah. YMCA was the only one I believe that I recognized in that movie. Right. I found myself, of course, really like thinking it. One of the songs earliest on, I actually remember very specifically what the chord progression was from the first time I watched it. It's the one where he's like, it's a love song, but it's a little bit creepy. It's like, I love you to death, I love you to death, I love you to death, da, da, da. And I don't know, it goes, I don't know the words. It kind of is a little bit weird and awkward.
The words to some of those early disco songs are pretty weird. Like once you get the backstory, like more by the Andrea True Connection, the thing that gets sampled in "Steal My Sunshine."
Oh yeah,
more. And so that woman, there's like those lines in the middle of that song about like get the action going, get the cameras rolling, and that's because she was working as a pornographic actress in South America when that song was released.
Oh wow.
And then she had trouble getting back into the US because of the fact the song was a hit, if I remember correctly. And so it's this weird like wink, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably more stories like that behind some of that stuff, but
Hey, so Eric?
Yes.
Totally unrelated to the Village People.
Yes.
Would you be willing to do either one or both of these two things? One, play something for us, and or two, sing a portion of Believe.
Believe?
With the proper voice.
Oh, by Cher?
Yeah.
Well, I don't have my auto-tune set up right now.
Wait, is that the actual name of that song? I always thought it was called "Do You Believe in Life After Love?"
No, it's just called Believe.
It's just called...
Oh, that makes way more sense.
Yeah, one of the first instances of auto-tune in popular music, I guess. Sure. Yeah.
Okay. You believe in life after love?
Yeah, you've got to hear Eric's version.
What's my version? Wait, what? What is my version?
All right, maybe I'm putting you on the spot. You've sung it as Cher.
Oh, do you believe in life after love? I can feel something inside me saying, I really don't think you're strong enough, no. I can
hear the auto-tune.
I tried to turn away from the laptop so I wouldn't be like too in your face with that. Yeah, I can do a decent Cher impression. Gypsies, tramps, and thieves. I mean, it's more of a caricature impression.
Yeah.
But you know, it works.
It works because like before we got on this call, I hit the trees like Sonny Bono. Oh no. That's an old one. That's on the Slim Shady LP.
Oh, is it? Oh, wow.
Yeah. I hit the trees like Sonny Bono. Oh no, something or other. That's just my favorite way to say that I smoked weed.
That is a great way to say that you smoked weed.
When it comes to hitting trees, I like to think of the Kennedys. They had several instances of that, didn't they?
Well, there's the plane crash with JFK Jr. RFK and JFK got shot. It's just really it's kind of great being a Kennedy until you're dead.
Yeah,
so you don't have live fast, die young people.
Right.
Yeah, there we go. Michael Lemoyne Kennedy. He died by slamming into a tree while skiing. While playing football on skis.
Yes. That's correct. Yep.
I'm so high I could eat a motherfucking star. That's another good. I think that was Lil Wayne.
What is it?
I'm so high I could eat a motherfucking star.
Oh, that's.
I think that's on. He did a remix of "Upgrade You" by Beyonce that had that.
Mm-hmm. That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah. So, Sonny Bono. He's dead.
Yeah.
Breaking news.
Poor son.
I'm trying to remember their famous song, but I'm getting it wrong in my head because what I got in my head is "I love you, you love me."
No, you're thinking about "I Got You, Babe."
I got you, babe. Thank you. All right.
I got you, babe.
Well, that song, and don't forget, "The Beat Goes On."
That's them.
I'm pretty sure. Now that you're at,
they definitely did a version of it. Yeah.
I thought that was them, right?
Yeah.
Pretty sure. Yeah.
I think that's actually a pretty decent song, but
there's some decent 60s pop on those. They're pretty uneven records, but I had copies of all of those at one point.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't listen to all of them.
Well, the Partridge Family has some surprisingly good stuff here and there.
Oh yeah, there's stuff buried. There's Brian Wilson stuff that never got released through the Beach Boys that David Cassidy recorded.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah, I think it's called "It's Like Heaven." There's another version of it that's on that record that's just Brian Wilson's wife and her friends, American Spring. That record's actually pretty good. That's the only time that you get to hear Brian Wilson do the Beach Boys thing with a girl group. And the songs are pretty good because it's all stuff he was saving and not putting on those kind of mediocre mid-70s Beach Boys records.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. What's the name of the group?
It's called American Spring, which is a little. You're gonna have to Google American Spring Brian Wilson because there's a lot of other things that'll pop up before that if you're searching for it. But it's good. I mean, there's actually the wife before that recorded a single with him as the Honeys that I forget what the name of it is. It's on there's one or two compilations of all the Brian Wilson singles that weren't Beach Boys related.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some good stuff on those. Yeah, there's Glenn Campbell before he sounds like Glenn Campbell. Because Glenn Campbell was a touring member of the Beach Boys before he went solo.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And, just rambling.
Have you guys seen that movie Love and Mercy? Which is
No, but it's free on YouTube, so it's probably going to happen soon because I'm watching everything that's free on YouTube, basically.
I'm surprised it's free. I had to pay $3.99 to rent Can't Stop the Music, and but meanwhile, Love and Mercy, which actually I thought was a pretty good film, is free on YouTube. What the fuck?
Yeah, there were some pretty good ones. So I was just okay, I'm going to watch whatever YouTube suggests I watch for a week because I have nothing better to do with my life at this point.
Right.
And there was Welcome to Me with Kristen Wiig. That was really good. That was good. This mentally unstable woman starts her own public access TV show with a lot of money. That was really interesting. There was Be Kind, Rewind. That was really good with Jack Black and Mos Def.
I heard that that's actually a good movie, but it didn't do well because it was pitched as a typical Jack Black comedy. But it's not, as far as I understand it.
I think it's in a weird place because it was because there's Jack Black is the star power. in it, but you also have like Michel Gondry. I think that was like 1 or 2 films right after Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. And it doesn't play like a Charlie Kaufman movie. Like Science of Sleep plays a little bit like a Charlie Kaufman movie. Be Kind Rewind is very much Gondry's own film, which I think was kind of off-putting for the people who wanted to go see it as like an art house movie.
Mm-hmm.
And then also just most staff is playing very much against type, which is really because he's playing kind of like he's a little bit slow.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, obviously, like most staff is not particularly slow on record. So that was really. I mean, there was some really bad. Oh, and the promotion was pretty good with John C. Reilly and what's his face. Ron's been like joining me for the crappy movie or the movie grab bag, I guess we'll call it.
Right. Yeah, I've been catching up on some of these.
Heartbreakers, that was so bad.
Oh my God.
What's that one?
Sigourney Weaver, Jennifer Love Hewitt, and
Ray Liotta,
Gene Hackman,
Jason Lee.
But it's not.
And it's a mother and daughter who scam. They scam people. Like Sigourney Weaver will meet a rich guy, marry him very quickly, and then put Jennifer Love Hewitt in a position like working as a secretary or a maid or something like that, in which she's very sexy, and ends up getting the guy to have sex with her, and then Sigourney Weaver walks in, catches them. And then files for divorce.
And that's another 2-hour movie that should not be 2 hours.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was painful. Yeah, maybe if they reduced it to an hour and a half, it wouldn't be so painful. But there was no heart in it.
No heart. Not really a lot of. I mean, it was just bad. I mean, Sigourney Weaver does like she does the most she could do with the material, I think.
Yeah.
But it's not enough to save the movie.
By the way, speaking of Gene, oh, sorry, go ahead.
The thing with Leonard Nimoy in the race car, though, I think
wait. Before you get to that, I want to just on Heartbreakers. Speaking of Gene Hackman, I just want to add that the woman that played, some think of Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor in Superman. The woman that played the retired model played Miss Tessmacher in Superman 1 and Superman 2.
Huh.
That's where you've seen her besides this movie. Okay, what were you going to say about Leonard Nimoy?
Oh, so this thing, it's called Baffled. It's from 1973. Leonard Nimoy acting as anything besides Dr. Spock he's
Mr. Spock.
Mr. Spock. Mr. Spock. It's so bad. It's the worst acting I've ever seen, to the point where it's pretty entertaining. He has these ESP visions, which are just as 70s and kitschy and awful as you can imagine them being. There's like an evil kid chasing him around. I love any movie where there's just like an evil 12-year-old. It's like evil children up to hijinks or whatever. It just amuses me a lot for whatever reason. And I can recommend it. That's the movie that Can't Stop the Music. Should have been. It's just entertainingly, like, mind-bogglingly bad.
Yeah, I wish this movie was actually entertaining. Well, it has some entertaining bits.
You're talking about Can't Stop the Music?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Yeah.
Well, I feel like if you had a room full of rowdy people and they're like screaming at it, this would be a much better movie.
This is
versus just like me in my house at 2 a.m.
Right. This is the kind of movie that is it's in the realm of like Pink Flamingos, right? Where it's best to put on like late at night with your friends when you've been drinking or something like that.
Yeah, if you're watching Pink Flamingos alone, I think like people are gonna have questions about you.
Yes. right. But yeah, I had most of my day free yesterday, minus some like errands and stuff, so I like carved out time in the afternoon. And sitting down in the afternoon to watch this movie is not enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's the best one. Being the only person watching it and just like, yeah, but like you said though, it's so bad, and there's like a lot of you know.
Well, like when you're alone, you're like staring into the void. Whereas, like if there's a lot of people, there's that like kind of energy and thrill of like a lot of sheep running off a cliff, right?
Yeah, something like that. Something to that effect.
Something to that.
But just sitting on my couch in the middle of the day is A, not very enjoyable, and B, a little depressing. Except for the fact it would have been totally depressing were it not for the fact that I was doing it to do a podcast, which like, cool. So
right, the podcast redeems everything.
So I actually saw something that put the three movies together, this, Xanadu, and The Apple. And this being the worst of the three.
By far, yeah. I mean, I'm kind of curious if Thank God It's Friday is any good, because I've had the soundtrack to that for years, but I doubt that it's any good.
I remember that being not bad, at least.
Okay.
It wasn't horrible. It wasn't in this category of horror. Let's see. Thank God. I mean, I might be wrong, but...
It seems like it's probably going to be better.
Oh, no. Okay. All right. Well, Tomato Meter has it at 30%, which is better. Not good, but better.
Were you looking up ratings for Can't Stop the Music or something?
No, Thank God It's Friday. Donna Summer.
Actually, did anyone look up ratings for, like, did Rotten Tomato do this at all?
Yeah. I just looked. So this has 7% critics.
Yeah.
All About Steve, I think, was 9%. So All About Steve is a better movie.
Slightly better. Nice.
One time the critics got it right.
By the way, if you want a music, I don't know how into rap you are. I mean, I'm not, but I love the movie Wild Style that Dan mentioned earlier.
Well, I like rap, but I've never seen that movie though.
It's so good. Oh my God.
It was.
Have you ever heard Illmatic, the Nas record?
No, I've not.
Okay.
I really haven't listened to much Nas at all, actually.
Oh, Illmatic is, I mean, the rest of it, there's good stuff, but it's uneven. Illmatic is just front to back bangers. But the first minute and a half of it is a sketch. He's in the studio and there's audio clips from Wild Style playing in the studio to kind of set the mood.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
It's sort of like in the hip hop community, that's considered like the hip hop movie.
Oh, okay. Cool. When did it come out?
83. So it's and we go into this in the episode on it quite a bit, but it gets like a really good portrait of like what is hip hop before crack. Because it changes, right? Like that's where the gangsta rap thing comes from. Is it's this big response to like the aftermath of Iran-Contra, basically. And,
you know what? I'll send you a link to my favorite part. I don't know how many times I've seen this. And what's it called? It's the basketball, not SmackDown.
It's the basketball, like rap showdown, freestyle showdown.
Showdown, the basketball.
They're playing the dozens, basically.
Yeah. It's these two groups. They get on the basketball court and they end up like rapping back and forth at each other. And then they play basketball while rapping. I don't know how many times, but I think it's representative of the movie as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like the plotting or the acting is really that much better in Wild Style. Although I think the acting is much more compelling because at least it's like amateurs doing kind of iffy acting is always more interesting than like somebody who's been trained doing terrible acting. And but it gets the spirit of the thing. Like I feel like most of the disco movies, and maybe it's just because I'm not a huge disco fan, none of them ever sold me on like, okay, this is what's kind of like magical and exciting about disco.
Right. Here's Wild Style. Again, like I said, I don't listen to rap much, but I came out of that thinking that we need more movies with rap soundtracks, with old school rap soundtracks. That we don't have enough of that. Well, we don't have any of that.
Yeah, there's a few. We could watch Beat Street.
Yeah,
Beat Street 2. That's like a year after Wild Style. It's like more commercial though. It's they have a bigger budget. But
but speaking of Can't Stop the Music.
Speaking of Can't Stop the Music.
Any final thoughts? I think we were going through final thoughts about a half hour ago.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like I said, I'm always going to have thoughts about this.
I'm going to keep ruminating on it like a traumatic event.
Exactly.
My past. I'm going to...
Exactly.
That is 2 hours of my life that I want back.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'll say an hour and 50 minutes that I want back, because the Danny Boy scene and the YMCA scene.
There was a collective 10 to 12 minutes that I enjoyed watching.
Yeah.
For one reason or another.
And actually, you had mentioned the Miss Tessmacher there. You mentioned Miss Tessmacher, the retired model eating the ice cream, eating the Baskin Robbins.
Yeah.
There were a number of times when she talked about eating, I don't know, like a bunch of Twinkies or Ho-Hos, or going like eating junk food. And it was great, right? Because here's this like gorgeous model, and it's all about her body and all that. She's eating junk food.
Right. You guys pick up on that sort of, I guess it was an innuendo. I didn't pick up on it till I wrote it down. And as I was writing it, I was like, oh, wait a second. That's funny. Where she says, I'm eating whatever I want, and I'm going to have two snowballs and a ding-dong.
Yes, I got
that. But it gets better, because then she's telling him, this is when she's explaining that she's got basically connections to all the biggest people in like the music industry to help him. And then he was like, yes, can you go to this guy? And she's like, I will never go back to this guy. And, you know, the point is she didn't want to go there. And she says, you know, he says, swallow your pride. And she says, I can't swallow my pride. And then he replies, and I quote, anyone who can swallow two snowballs and a ding-dong shouldn't have any trouble with pride. Which actually might be the single greatest line delivered in the movie.
That is
probably, yeah.
That is, I remember the snowballs and the ding-dong, but I don't remember that one. That is a great line.
Yeah. Actually, one other small thing that I really wanted to mention was, do you remember the scene where the old woman spanks someone with bread?
Yes. What?
Vaguely.
Well,
what's going on with that?
She makes an appearance for about half a second in the very beginning of the movie. And that's because it's the second thing I wrote down. The first thing I wrote was defiantly roller skating out of his job when he quits the record store job or whatever it was, and he's
Steve Grimberg.
Right, and then he like tells his boss off, and then roller skates out, which was just like, so good. The way he was so rebelliously and defiantly roller skating away. But then the next thing that happens is like that's sort of like there's a little bit of a montage of him, and he eventually meets up with the former model. But during that scene, the same old woman has a loaf of bread, and as he goes by her, she smacks him on the butt with it. And it happens so fast that, you know, you can very easily miss it until she comes back.
And that's how I met your mother.
Right. Yeah.
All right, smacking someone, an elderly woman smacking people with bread for no reason.
In the butt, spanking them.
The butt.
Spanking people with bread.
Oh wait, that makes it a little more interesting, you know, framing it that way.
That didn't happen at your bar mitzvah, Ron? Are you actually a man now?
That was the center. The entire bar mitzvah was focused on that. I wasn't raised on a chair or anything like that. I got smacked on the butt by a random woman.
Oh, see, I had to sit backwards on the chair so that everybody could see her smacking me with the bread. I was raised up like some kind of offering to the gods, and then.
All right, you do the sign off?
Yeah, all right. So this has been Anomaly Questionable Movies. I'm still Dan,
and I'm still Ron.
And today we had on a guest, Eric.
Eric.
Thanks again for having me on. I'm glad that we finally were able to find a movie to do it.
Yeah, you got any projects you want to plug, places you want to send people to?
The only thing I I have that's really noteworthy. Well, not noteworthy is if anybody wants any kind of music lessons, then go to Guitar Stop in Cambridge.
All right.
And the website is guitarstop.com?
Yep. Yep. That is it.
Spelled like it's pronounced.
All right.
Yep.
And get them while they're hot, folks.
There you go.
As soon as this episode drops, Eric is not going to have any more free time to be on this show, probably, because he's going to have so many bookings.
Yeah.
And you can tell that he's more. This is the show where the guests are usually more prepared than the interviewers, or the hosts, because I did not take any notes. I didn't even take mental notes. Like I'm just sort of like, what the hell happened to that 2 hours? Because I know I watched the movie and I'm not remembering half the stuff we're talking about. But anyway, so we watched Can't Stop the Music, 1980, about the Village People, and I guess we'll see you all next week.
All right. Take care, everyone.